Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, the long-awaited debate between the major presidential candidates is set for this upcoming week. What must former President Trump and Vice President Harris do to break the undecided voter gridlock? Meanwhile, the state's abortion amendment is back in the news as both Trump and Harris turn up the volume. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined today, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime practicing psychologist and the nation's Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Dr.
Great to be here, Frank.
Well, we finally have an agreement, as of this taping at least, that both former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris will debate this coming Tuesday. I say we have an agreement. However, they're still squabbling over whether to leave the microphones on or off. But let's say it goes as scheduled on Tuesday. What must Harris do? What must Trump do?
Well, first off, I think for Donald Trump, I think he should do this debate, although I have doubts, okay? I do have doubts about that.
You have doubts that he will do it?
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to bet 10 to 1 that he's not going to do it, but I still have a little bit of a doubt there. But I think it's going to happen, and I think he needs to present himself in a way where he looks like the boss, he looks like the authoritarian personality, because that's what he wants to be, but he also wants to be the kind of person who is relatable. He's got to present himself in a way where people are going to identify with him. And if he goes off track, which sometimes he does, and he insults Harris or he acts in an abrasive way, that could be a negative, and it could be a really big problem for him in this debate.
I think having the microphones off, and we saw it in the Biden debate, is actually an advantage to Donald Trump because it makes him look more presidential and in control of his emotions.
I agree 100% because I think this is an approach where he can get his points in, he can look like the boss, and then it's over, and then it's Harris's turn. So you're right. He doesn't have the ability to ramble and say things that might be
or interrupt
or be problematic for him. Right.
And I think Harris probably wants the microphones on because he will interrupt because often he can't help himself, and she'll look more in control of her emotions.
Right. And for Harris here, I think what she has to do is act like the prosecutor that she is, and throw this back at Trump. I mean, throw it back at him and look at his behavior and who he is. What kind of a person are we talking about with Donald Trump? Now, she's been pretty good at that and saying, you know, he's the guy that represents chaos and confusion rather than me. I represent going forward. That's going to be her pitch, but she has to be able to present it in the right way where she's attractive to the voters.
It will be interesting to see.
Who has the winning personality?
If it happens, but you say there's a chance, in your mind at least, it may not, because Trump or Harris might back out.
I have some doubts.
Okay, some doubts. Okay. All right, the situation in the Middle East has grown more complex as 6 hostages who survived abduction and 11 months in captivity were shot dead moments before Israeli troops arrived to liberate them. That happened, of course, this past week. Donald Trump has an argument to say that he kept the world safer. When he was president, we didn't have Ukraine. When he was president, we didn't have the situation in Gaza. Is he playing up to that enough as the person who controlled international politics?
Well, he might be able to play it out better, but I think most voters realize that wars happen, that these incursions happen, that terrorist attacks happen. And I think the voters are more concerned about what to do about it. You know, what's going on. And I think it's a frustrating experience right now for President Biden and Harris to look at this and try to figure out what to do with Israel and how to put pressure on them to get some kind of a resolution. But, Frank, I think that there's an interesting psychology here that overrides everything. And that is, did Israel do the right thing in dealing with these awful terrorists? Did they do the right thing? Because they immediately, Netanyahu did, he declared war on them and he wanted to eliminate them. But the terrorists are hiding in schools and, homes for the elderly and hospitals underneath and places. So innocent people would have to be killed in order to eliminate Hamas. Is that the right psychology for terrorism? I think a lot of people question that, including me, because I think sometimes you have to have a different, out-of-the-box approach in dealing with terrorists.
All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the abortion issue, okay? Because what I'm seeing with the abortion issue is something that psychologists have been talking about for a long time. People say one thing, but they really mean something else. And in this case, what I'm talking about is, are folks really that interested in the fetus and the baby being born, or are they interested in controlling women? I have a feeling that many of these people who are anti-abortion, extreme, are more interested in controlling women and making sure that women have their so-called place in society, and they don't have these freedoms. I really feel that what's happening is that perhaps there are some folks who, for religious reasons, they really believe that in life, and it's an issue for them. But I also think that many of these folks who are against abortion, happening, what happens is they really believe that they want to control people, especially women.
Interesting look at it from a psychological standpoint.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Doc. Coming up, from campaign buses across the state to muddled statements, the debate over Amendment 4 on the ballot this November in Florida is heating up again when Power and Politics returns in a moment. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. The Harris campaign launching a reproductive rights bus tour throughout the state of Florida this past week, which began a short distance from Mar-a-Lago. Vice President Harris and running mate Tim Walz will not be riding along, but some familiar names will be, including Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. They're going all in on this Amendment 4 abortion strategy, for better or worse. Right. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that women across the state of Florida are joining forces, Republican women, Democratic women, independent folks, different groups. They're reaching across the aisle. They want this to pass, this amendment. So I think it's a big deal. There's a lot of energy, a lot of intensity around this. So I think that the Republicans are really on the defensive here. The Democratic Party has a lot going for them here in Florida right now, and maybe more so than appears right now. I think that this is going to be a very, very big issue and get voters out. It could be a big, big plus for the Democratic Party.
Fair enough. The state is really not what you would call a battleground state, Florida. But why not? Why doesn't, and there's only 9 weeks or so till Election Day, why doesn't Harris and or Walz just spend a day or two on the bus? Why just let it go without them?
Well, they're probably thinking about their time and where they have to spend it. And maybe it's not necessary for them to be on the bus because you have the local politician running for Senate here, Powell, and maybe that's the right strategy. That's a strategy by itself. Maybe they shouldn't be there. This is Florida. They want to focus on Florida. It's a very good idea, and I think they're going to get a lot of publicity. And it's probably strategically a very good approach.
It's a campaign decision.
It's a campaign.
They need to spend their time
the
elsewhere.
optics here could look very good for the Democratic Party.
Abortion is a thorny issue, not only in Florida, but throughout the country. Senator Rick Scott, who is running for re-election against the aforementioned former Congresswoman Debbie Powell, is in kind of a pickle when it comes to Amendment 4, saying he opposes the amendment, which would extend the amount of time a woman has to get an abortion in the state, but also believes Congress should leave those decisions to the state. Now, I read this twice, a third time this morning. I don't know exactly where, with all due respect to the senator, where he stands. It's okay to be against it in Florida, and that's a 6-week ban, but nearby states that might have 24-week bans, he's okay with that as well. So where exactly does he stand?
This is a situation, Frank, where it looks like the senator wants a kind of a no decision, a no position, a kind of middle of the road, but not say anything position. It's a position without a position. And I guess politicians can do that, but there are consequences. Now, he's very good at winning elections.
Close elections.
Close elections. He's the master at that,
is.
probably right now. But this is an approach that I question, really. Is this going to work here in Florida at this time by not really making a clear decision on where he is on abortion, not saying yes or no? I mean, I think it could be problematic for him, but he knows how to play that 50% rule here in Florida.
Well, he's saying no in Florida. I'm voting no. I'm voting against that amendment. But other states can do whatever they want. And I think it's a problem not only here, but nationwide. I think Donald Trump has not really fallen one way or another on this. And I think in many ways, a lot of politicians, not just him, are trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Yes, and at the same time, women everywhere are saying, my body, my choice. Why should an individual state have the right to infringe on me, wherever the state is?
In some states, it's a majority of men and women, voters and residents of the state. In other states, it's an overwhelming majority that's in favor of reproductive rights. So how do you have to thread that needle? And it's almost like the dog that caught the car.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do with it?
Yeah, and to push it back and say that it's only for states' rights, as we said last week. Mm-hmm. Well, how could that be? Shouldn't there be some rights? I mean, aren't we the United States? Should this be the divided states of America? It doesn't make good sense, and I don't think the argument goes very well. Well, we'll just let the states do it. Well, I don't think it's a winning argument.
And that was part of your commentary last week.
Yes, I just don't see it as a winner.
Okay. Also this week, a new Florida law has terminated 54 public sector unions because they do not meet a new requirement that forbids a union from bargaining collectively unless more than 60% of its membership is paying dues. The new law affects about 63,000 public employees in the state of Florida. I don't know how you win, I could be wrong, if you're going against the working person, the middle-class working man.
Well, you're saying that, but again, there are a lot of folks who don't have a very good position on unions. They don't feel good about unions. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say they're anti-union or they're anti all of those folks who work in the unions, but they're not favorable when it comes to union and union thinking. So the pitch here politically is to everybody who's kind of against unions or pushing back against union and union activity. And is that a winning strategy where you can, again, get just over 50% of the vote because you're trying to capture that vote while Harris and her team is trying to capture the union vote.
So even if it's 50%, even people in union have a problem sometimes being in a union, paying dues and so on and so forth, but it should be your own decision. But even if 63,000 people, if 31,000 of them feel like this is a bad decision for them, then you could theoretically lose votes there. That's 31,000 votes.
Oh, you could lose votes here, but again, you know, the thinking here in America now in politics is just splitting the difference, splitting it, and then maybe getting one more than 50%.
As all things, it's very close.
Very close.
This close.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, politics and weather collide as we see who enjoyed the sunshine this week and who got soaked to the skin when we present the always popular segment, Sunshine or Showers. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The weather in Florida, as you know, is unpredictable. Just this week, Doctor, I don't know if I told you that. It was sunny. I took a walk to the pool, and by the time I got to the pool, it was raining. So that's how quickly things change in a moment in Florida. That's why every week we use that as a premise to see who was up and who's down, statewide and nationally, in a segment that we call Sunshine or Showers. Who, for you at least, was in the sunshine this week?
Well, I have Florida, most of the cities in Florida in the sunshine because of crime reduction.
The entire state,
yes.
Most of the state.
I mean, you have to give the mayors, you have to give folks in office credit here in Florida because crime is gradually going down. It's been going down for quite a long time in Florida, but it continues to drop dramatically. And by the way, crime is dropping dramatically across the United States, except for some areas. Mm-hmm. But even in Chicago and San Francisco and New York City, real significant reductions in crime and violent crime. It's a pattern. There's some exceptions, of course. Texas had almost 5,000 deaths by gunfire last year. So not so good. Not
almost
so good.
The entire state is in the sunshine.
That's right. Florida. Right. Okay. Now, who do you have this week?
We rehearse this every week, and it always comes as a surprise when he asks me. Okay. I'm putting a part of the state we seldom talk about, but I don't know if you've ever been to Southwest Florida. Naples, Sarasota, Clearwater, and so on. They are in the sunshine. Inc. magazine, Inc. 5000 did the 5,000 fastest growing companies, and a bunch of companies in Southwest Florida made the list. I have some here. Cash Kick, they're not a sponsor of Tampa. Superfan Live in Clearwater. Fly USA in Clearwater. We don't talk about Southwest Florida, but that part of the state is in the sunshine because it made the list. A lot of companies made the list of fastest growing companies on the Inc. 5000 list. So Southwest Florida, a little posh portion, they call it the Paradise Coast, in the sunshine this week.
Good for you.
Well, with every sunshiny day, you know what happens? Showers. Who was in the showers this week?
Well, Frank, I think I have real showers here for the Trump team and Donald Trump at the Arlington Cemetery, okay? I do not believe that Bush 41, George W. Bush, Romney, McCain certainly, would go into the cemetery, take pictures, and make a political speech or make political commentary. It's not something that these Republicans would do.
I don't think he made a commentary. He did take photos, though.
I thought that there was some commentary also that could have happened outside of the cemetery. Okay, but the presence, the photographs, and the appearance of a political event at the cemetery. And by the way, he and the team was warned by the Army representative there, and she was brushed aside and then called mentally ill. Apparently, she had a mental illness because she didn't know what she was doing.
According to the Trump
According to the Trump team. Not good optics, very, very bad in terms of how it looks and how it appears.
All right. So they are in the showers.
In the showers.
Okay.
Who do you have?
Who do I have in the showers? Is that what you're asking?
Showers this week.
Before I tell you who's in the showers, I want to make a correction because Ben Sasse, the former senator, is in the showers. He is from the university. He was the president of the University of Florida for about 17 months or so. Tripled the budget. Right. Okay. I think in a previous show I said Senator Sasse was the former senator from North Dakota. Somebody emailed Nebraska.
Yeah.
So thanks for the correction. We're happy to make the correction, and we apologize for that. But Ben Sasse was head of the University of Florida. He not only tripled the budget, but now, as they do an investigation, they found out that some of his former staffers who were working remotely were also flown in every once in a while to the university to make an appearance, to make it look as if they were on campus when they weren't. Ben Sasse, come on, man. Come on, man.
Not looking good.
In the showers.
Right. Not looking good at all.
We are going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled, Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. Presidential campaigns are filled with promises. It's what presidential candidates do. But how many of their promises are just wishful thinking? Our government, especially in this hyper-partisan age, is not built for easy solutions. The days of Lyndon Johnson and Ronald Reagan pushing through legislation by sheer force of personality now seem gone, as does the moderate senator who would actually listen to both sides of an argument without marching in lockstep with his party. That's why I chuckle when both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris promise to resolve a complex problem as soon as they get into office, or as they say, on day one, a claim almost always followed by a hearty round of applause and nothing else. There's a reason things in Washington work at a snail's pace, and that reason is the filibuster. Now, I am not one of those journalists who feel the filibuster should be eliminated. At times, it can slow the legislative process, giving members of the Senate more time to reach a consensus or make a bad bill better. In some cases, it can actually help. But here's the problem. The threshold of 60 Senate votes to override a filibuster seems in this day and age all but impossible. Maybe it should be 55 votes. Nonetheless, promises to pass voter reform, reproductive rights, end funding to Ukraine, and countless other promises are just that, promises that disappear in the wind right after Election Day. And this has been going on for quite a while. The days when a legislator held the Senate floor for hours on end to demonstrate how important his or her opposition to a particular bill was are long gone. Since the early 1970s, senators have been able to use the so-called silent filibuster. Anytime a group of 41 or more senators simply threatens a filibuster, it generally happens. It's disruptive to the legislative process, but not to the senator who becomes the tough guy for a day. There are lots of Senate votes that do not need 60 to pass, including approving cabinet members and some judges, but all too many times the filibuster means the end of the line. I wish more people, and quite frankly, more reporters would point this out the next time either of the presidential candidates makes a promise he or she can't keep. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.